So as I showed in my photo, my supply photo, we're going to be working with Bear Hugs stamp set, the Castle die that was in the Park Pals box. I believe that's the name of it. Forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, but it was released again separately, so you can purchase this. My favorite, the Forest Stencil. We may use a couple other stencils, but for the sake of my live discount for tonight, for those of you guys that are watching, these are the 3 products that you'll be able to use that discount code on. And so for those that are watching now, the discount code is my name, Marcia, M-A-R-C-I-A, June for the month. So don't forget, jot that down. You can use that code to save, I believe it's 20%. Hi, Janet. 20% on just these 3 products, okay? And again, like I said, we might use the Celtic or this, the Slimline Leave one. I do not know what this one is called, forgive me. But we might not. But I wanted to leave them here beside me just in case. I've got my blending brushes here. I've got my brown, a green, a gray, and a black. I went ahead and pre-colored the Mama Bear from the Bear Hug stamp set that you likely saw in my supply pick. She is right here. I went ahead and fussy cut her out. I'm trying to get good light here. Lighting's kind of weird over here. I apologize. And I showed you the Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend alcohol marker colors I used for this, but just to review them quickly, I used the Earth Brown blend. I did use all 3 tones to color her this brown fur. For her muzzle, I used the, where is it here? This golden brown blend. I used the darker there at the base and then blended out just with the light. I don't even think I used the mid-tone. I did use the gold brown on her crown as well and a bit in the inner part of her ears there. The coral blend, this is my favorite. I used the darker tone here to kind of dot it on her cheeks. A swipe there where there would be some shadow in her ear, and just use this lighter tone just over where I had already kind of colored that golden brown tone in her ears. I used the, where is it? Brown gray shades. These are the darker ones from the blends. Pardon me, excuse me. I just used that on her nose here. I did use brown first and then came in with the darker one to create just a darker nose. And then for the jewel in her crown, I used the Jade Green blend, darker and then dotted in a lighter. And then, of course, a trusty white gel pen to add some reflective dots in her eyes and just there at the jewel and at her nose. And I always dot and then kind of wipe with my fingers so I don't get such a bold line. There's the cat. Say hi, Eva. Oh, brother. Oh, kitty cats. Again, I'm sorry I'm congested. Today has been an interesting day, to say the least. I wasn't sure if I was even going to make it tonight. We just got home not too long ago. It was very eventful and very unsatisfying. We weren't not able to get accomplished what we had hoped to get accomplished after sitting in the car for like 5 hours. Okay, so Mama Bear, I went ahead and stamped and fussy cut around the sentiment, sending bear hugs. Hi, Miss Tina. And went ahead and cut out this main portion, the gate portion, if you will, of the castle die, as well as 2 of the towers. As you can see, I cut them out of just a light gray cardstock. You could even do this with white. You don't have to use a pre-color. I just find it's a little bit easier because you already kind of have a base there. And this is what we're going to do to it. So we started this, and then we just kind of layered some color to kind of give it more of this. I wanted to kind of give it that that rustic, kind of worn-in stone feel. You know, like those, why can't I think of the citadels that you see, like my husband's from, hi Gwen, my husband's from Romania, and we were driving through the countryside there. You would see these old stone citadels just atop hills that were just, you know, moss grown, just kind of ruins more or less. So that's kind of what I wanted to replicate here with her being in the woods. Hi Heidi, you are most welcome. It's my pleasure to do this. So I'm just gonna show you how I did this. Of course, there's probably a million different ways you can do this. One thing I did want to mention, we won't be doing this here, but I would recommend getting some texture paste, something kind of gritty, and mixing in some of your inks, some of your maybe Distress Oxide sprays, re-inkers, anything to kind of add some color, acrylic paint even, and then using that even with your fingers, because I think it's a lot of fun to use your fingers when you craft, and dab it on there to give it way more texture and effect. Another thing you could do is after you ink them, run them through an embossing folder, or one of my favorite, the dry embossing techniques with those rubber mats, through your die cutting machine. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This one matches mine. So if you've got one of these rubber mats, this is what I used to create that really cool effect for the prehistoric family box. I used that stone stencil that was in there with this mat. Everything clings to it, silicone. But anyways, using that technique, if you wanted to do that with a stone stencil, a brick stencil, any kind of texture, that would look really amazing for this too, okay? Again, I'm trying to keep it simple here because that would take longer and it's a lot harder to show you with the space that I'm working on here. But I encourage you to try that as well. You could even take an embossing, your scoreboard, and where is my thing? Bone folder. You can even add score lines in there for effect. So I'm just, you know, I love to try to give you guys ideas to think outside the box a little bit and fun ways to kind of dress up what you're already dealing with. Let me get a sip of water. All right. So to age the castle pieces, I started again with this lighter gray card. You don't have to do that because we are going to add quite a bit of ink layers over it. So I'm using hickory smoke first. And you know, sometimes it can be a little bit messy, and sometimes that's intentional. In this case, it's going to be in the background. She is going to cover some of this. But sometimes the less perfect it looks, the more realistic it can look. You know, it creates even more texture, if you will. So again, I shouldn't have put that off to the side, forgive me. Hickory smoke. Sorry if I've got some weird shadow here. Just inking some up, and I'm going to throw it along the edges of this tower. This is exactly what I did on these other pieces, okay? It's not going to turn out exactly the same, but it's the same steps. Any gray ink would work. I just like the oxides. They just blend so beautifully, and I do take advantage of their water reactivity. I am literally going to rub back and forth across this top piece. You'll see sometimes that the ink will begin to settle. It'll catch on the edges of the paper there. That's what I'm trying to do there. But that's why you see me doing that. That is intentional. That's not me being trying to be lazy while I'm inking. If you've got a smaller brush, you could even go in here, in around the window. Now we're gonna go use our black. I'm gonna swap out my gray brush, go with my black brush. You could use the same brush for this. Just do all your grays first and then move to the black soot or whatever black ink that you have that you blend with. But again, you could use the same brush, just start with the gray first. Now I'm just gonna blend it in. Again, just along the bottom edge and the lower sides. I don't want to go too far up the side there. And you see, I'm not going to apply too much ink to my brush to begin with. The black goes a long way. But if you see, it adds so much more depth and definition. So this is just so far. You could definitely leave it here. This would be a great way to add dimension and shadow if you wanted to make it a fairy princess castle instead of a more rugged stone found, you know, accidentally in the woods while you were wandering down a path, you know, that kind of thing. So this, I think that looks beautiful just like that. Again, run it through a brick embossing folder. That would add so much amazing texture to that as well. But since we want to gross it up, and not gross it up, but we want to rugged it up, now we're going to go to a brown. In this case, I'm using Vintage Photo Distress Oxide. I'm now going to swap into my brown brush. And you're going to see me do something funny here. And yes, it's going to look kind of funny at first, but you'll see what I'm going for here. I want to recreate how dirt and stuff will start to cling within those crevices within the rocks. You know, roots and vines start to grow there. Dirt starts to kind of be found in speckles and spots, right? It's not going to be blended seamless like this. That's not how nature works. So I am going to ink quite generously, and I'm testing to see how much ink I have on my brush, okay? And I'm literally going to dab it on, okay? Yes, see what that looks like? That is good. That's what I want. I want to see those little dots and speckles of color. I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna see if I can show it better here. Do you see that? It adds such fun texture, and it's just something a little different, okay? So that is intentional. Gonna dab that on, dab as much or as little as you want, okay? Now I'm going to shift to a green. Moss is one of my favorite things on the planet. It feels so soft. I love how it grows in all those nooks and crannies at the roots of trees. Ferns are my favorite. Those are some of my favorite things. Hence I'm the Frolicking fairy. I mean, go figure, right? It all just kind of it all makes sense. So I'm going to be using one of the newer Distress Oxide colors, Rustic Wilderness. Green brush, and the same thing. I'm gonna ink this up. I'm not gonna care if I wipe that off. And we're just going to dab that on. Again, we want to make it look like moss has started to take over this gorgeous stone ruins of a castle, okay? To kind of give you an idea of what I'm looking for. You see? See how we did that? And see how they all look different. To me, that's golden. That's what I want. Yes, Shelly, that's what I'm talking about. Green moss. It's one of my most favorite things. Okay, so now that we've got our color layered on there, again, just repeat that across all of your pieces. And you can use any number of the pieces you want from this set. Okay, I even considered toppling one to make it look like the castle had fallen into even further ruins, but the pieces looked a little bit too, you could probably distress them a little bit more before you did that. But my idea was to kind of stack them just like this behind Mama Bear in this forest scene that we're gonna create. So I'm gonna separate these. I'm gonna use my Mr. bottle. And yes, you'll see, I don't care that that's on there. It's gonna get on my rag. That's gonna add even more texture, okay? Because I'm gonna be picking some of that up. I'm dabbing it. There's dirty on this. It just creates more interest. That is all intentional. I understand that's what's gonna happen. Again, dirty rag. Don't use a dirty rag if you don't want that to happen. Okay, so now I'm gonna set these off to dry because this was a thinner paper. It's not like an index weight. So I'm just gonna wipe this up a little bit. And as I suggested in my supply post, I went ahead and pre-inked my card base. This is 110 pound, that index weight Nina cardstock. One thing I will say about it, it does not blend well. That's one of my biggest complaints with that paper. It's great for card bases, but in my opinion, it's not good for blending. My cheaper paper reams that I get at Walmart for $5 or $6, it says it's 110 pound. It's more like an 80 pound weight, but it's a lot smoother. It blends, and that's what I use to color on. So yay for cheap coloring paper. So yes, Shelly's saying it's all in the details. Yes. And green, in my opinion, in this setting, I think it adds such a beautiful, magical woodland feel to it. So I'm glad that you like that, and that you didn't think of it. So that's even more fun. So to create this background, or the base for our background, again, I'm using all the same colors. Okay, I'm not going to introduce anything different. I use that beautiful hickory smoke here at the top, kind of creating that vignette, if you will. Then I pulled in that black soot, again, just at the edges, to create that mossy woodland foreground here, rustic wilderness here. See, again, that's how it blends. I'm not gonna worry myself with that, not a big deal. Vintage photo here, just at the base, and some of the black, whatever black soot was remaining on this brush, just again here at the edge, and then I misted it. Again, I used my dirty rag, but see what fun texture that creates? Again, think about those things. Those might not be things you think about, but utilize all those tools that you have around you, okay? Including the dirty rag. If there's dirty ink, water, or something on there, think about how you can actually play that into your scene, if that will work for you. And again, I misted it, so that's dry, and that's why it's maybe a little bit warped. Now we are going to grab our forest stencil. I mentioned to, I believe it was Cindy, she loves this stencil, and I told her that this background could be used for any number of the sets that we have available on the site. You could add any characters here. Just, I mean, man, you could change the trees even. You could use it for the princess that lives down in the bayous. We have another stencil with that. So you could modify this to fit any number of things, okay? This would be fun for a long hair, don't care kind of card. If you put a tower in the background with the princess in it, that kind of thing. I'm trying to be careful, so you're gonna have to read between the lines here. So now we're gonna use the stencil. We're gonna use it very similarly to how I used it on my last live using the man in green tights. So I'm gonna lay this here. And again, you see we've kind of created our base. You could use a blue in the sky. I just liked how that gray created that more deep in the forest kind of look. You know, you're not gonna see blue sky peeking out if you're deep in the woods, you know? Okay, so I'm gonna place the stencil here, just above where I know my ground is and just where I can see the tops of the gray. You could definitely use one of those magnetic boards. I just don't have it in here with me. I'm going to start with a lighter tone and then build in and kind of shift this around a bit. Because sometimes those trees in the distance, using that same green, I didn't try to wipe off whatever's there. It's just gonna all blend together. But again, the ones in the distance tend to look lighter, and as you get closer, that green tends to be a little bit darker. So we're gonna start here. Ooh boy, hold your stencil. And I'm using Shabby Shutters here. This is such a beautiful green color. And as with the other card, I'm gonna start, and in fact, you don't even have to really do too much blending, as I did with the other project. See, it's even pulling some of that color down in here. So that's gonna look really cool. See how cool that looks? Because that rustic wilderness, that darker mossy green is in there, and see what it's doing? Isn't that awesome? That's accidental. I'm just gonna pull down, that way I can make sure to get all this really cool detail from the trees on the stencil. Sometimes when you go like this, they'll bend a little bit. Not typically if you're careful, but see, I'm gonna have to hold it. I'm gonna have to pinch it. Again, the magnetic, station, Make Art Station would help with that. I'm trying to make it complicated for you on purpose, you know, because that's how we roll. Oh, that looks really pretty. So I'm gonna shift again. I'm just gonna use what ink is on here. And I'm just gonna pull it in some of these spaces to make it look like more trees are in the distance. And since we're not inking the whole thing, you can shift it and move it around and add them wherever you want to add more depth to your scene. See? I'm gonna throw some up here. I don't want to add more because I want it to look like they're off in the distance, okay? And since we're not adding more, we're using what's left, and we're inking from the top down, it's not gonna blend over what you have. Instead, it's just going to kind of just build. It's like we're growing the forest out. Does that make sense? So now I'm gonna go in with that rustic wilderness again, just because that's such a beautiful color. I don't wanna go too much, so I think I'm gonna use this one. I don't use this one as much. There's a lot more detail and they're smaller, but I think in this case, this will work quite nicely down here at the bottom. I'm gonna try to be careful and not ink too much here. In fact, this is a fun trick. See, watch this. If it'll fit through, you can tuck that ridge right underneath your card. You seeing this, guys? And yes, Timothy, how the heck do you not have this stencil? Audra, you need to hook him up. And I'm going to kind of slide that up underneath there, and now I'm not gonna get that line. I don't want that harsh line. So I'm just kind of seeing through my stencil where that initial tree line is and deciding where I want to add this much darker ridge of trees. We'll go somewhere here. Okay, does that work? Yeah, Timothy, you'll notice most of us on the team, we really like this stencil. It's just so good for building just anything. Oh my gosh. And it's an easy way to create a landscaped background. Gosh, I think Bree used it. She used it on her gorgeous Wicked Witch card for release last month. Oh my goodness. Peeking through the window with her crazy little monkey beside her. we've had this stencil in our arsenal for a while too. It's just such a good standard basic one to kind of have, you know? Yes, I could see like chevrons might come and go, but this kind of style, heck no, this one kind of sticks around. What I want to do is kind of get rid of some of those streaky lines a little bit. So I am going to blend a little bit more harshly here, if harsh is the right word for this. We're going to be covering a lot of this with the Castle and Mama Bear, but just in case any spots peek through, I don't want there to be any weirdo streaks. But it is easier to kind of pull down because as you see, some of these spots can kind of wiggle, and I don't want them to wiggle too much. Now let's reveal it. Booyah! Doesn't that look great? And all we did was we only used 2 greens too. Think about that. 2, not 3, hand. 2 greens. We used Shabby Shutters and Rustic Wilderness. And again, we started with those ones further in the back. We inked that first layer, did not reapply that Shabby Shutters ink, and just pulled down to kind of build out our woodland. Building from like, we're kind of talking like the middle front back. And then to kaplowy with this beautiful Rustic Wilderness green, that darker, bolder green, just right up front. And then that's it. Isn't that awesome? Simple, easy. I am gonna do a little spritz of water and hope I don't regret it. I don't want too many dewdrops in our woods. It's mostly for here at the bottom. I'm gonna add just a little bit more. Now shimmer water or a gold spritzy water, shimmer, any kind of shimmer would look really cool for this because it's a magical wood. I do not have a shimmer one, but I highly recommend you use a shimmer one for this. But isn't that gorgeous? Dude, you could do this and just stick a sentiment on it. You know, go explore or something like that. Wouldn't that be awesome? But no, 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 we have to add our other elements. So let's figure out where we want to put these pieces. And then we just assemble it. Again, for those that might not have been on when I started, the discount code for tonight's live is Marcia, my name M-A-R-C-I-A, June, no spaces, and that will save you, I believe it's 20% on the 3 main supplies, or the 3 only supplies I'm using on tonight's card, the Castle die, Bear Hugs, and that amazing forest stencil. Pardon me, I bumped my stand. Okay, so just figuring out where I want to put everything. I thought of standing her right here through the gate part because she just kind of just seems like the right place to put her. She just kind of fits in there so nicely, don't you think? And then sticking, I wanted it to come in just off center so that there was space for me to put the sentiment. And I think this kind of layout works for me. So let's build this up a little bit. I'm going to adhere the towers. I'm gonna glue them flat onto the base with my glue. I know it's not called that. I just like it. I like to call it that. Or liquid adhesive. I know. If Mama Audra's watching. Okay, I'm gonna try to line up the base of that. There we go. If it's not perfectly straight, who's gonna kill you? It's a ruin. It's a castle ruins. You know, I'm gonna just try to slide it here at the edge just so I can see how straight I am not. Wonk wonk. Okay, there we go. For this one, I am going to pop it up and I'm gonna use that coaster blank that I keep preaching about. It doesn't have quite as much dimension as a foam tape. It's also recyclable. So I'm gonna use this one to lift up the gate part. No, I don't want to use my sticky scissors for that. Here we go. And I have this weird bruise on my middle finger over here. It's like a bump. You can even see it. See it? It's swollen up. It's swollen since today and it hurts just to touch it. I have no idea what happened there. Not good. Mosquitoes trying to bite me. We've had some crazy storms. I don't know about you guys, but holy bananas. Power knocked out this afternoon. I had just set my work laptop down, thankfully, but I wasn't done working. And then power knocked out, and oh my gracious. So now I get to do some extra work later. Hooray! But I love my job, so that's okay. Gwen, I did. Well, I think I might have snacked it. We have a lot of mosquitoes that since we finally got some rain last weekend and it cooled the weather down. We were hitting 90s, I think, the week before. But then the mosquitoes surged, and we've been having yellow flies like crazy. And I was waiting for the mosquitoes to show up, and there's still one in here. I thought I killed it. And that's the thing. If you don't catch it right away, that mosquito will bite you like 50 bajillion times before you finally whack it. And I definitely believe that every living thing has a right to live, right? I'm that person that I don't like to kill the spiders. They actually have a very awesome function. But man, those mosquitoes and those yellow flies, that takes a little bit more convincing. Okay. This is still a little damp, so I'm trying to be extra careful because I don't want to rip it up. And so now for Mama Bear, we're going to place her here. And again, we're going to add another layer of dimension here. So I think I'm going to use foam tape just in those parts where it will bypass the castle. So I'm going to put a piece here and just up here at the very tippy top. That's why I do that. And yes, I did cut right in between her wee little legs because too much white there just bothered me. But I'll show you a trick. Ready? I cut right in between her legs so I could get that. So I didn't jab my scissors out and just go weak. I actually cut in half, but see, you wouldn't never know. Secrets. So there won't be as much of adhesive here. I'm just going to make sure it's not going to interfere with anything. I'm not an adhesive junkie. I know some people are, and that's awesome for you. I'm not. A lot of these cards end up just sitting in a box in my craft room, awaiting a home. Okay, so I think that's good. And as you can see, she's a little bit higher than the castle, so we still got a bunch of stuff there going on. And then for this one, oh, look, I shifted her off center a little bit more. That's fine. I will stick this right here, and I'm going to put foam adhesive just right on this portion. Where are my sticky scissors? I have dedicated sticky scissors that I need to probably, they're not too bad, but I do need to clean them. Okay, I think that's how we're going to set that up. You could also add, thank you so much, Timothy. When you see, I mean, it's very basic. The colors are very earthy. One thing I try not to do, unless I'm intentionally trying to introduce a ton of colors, like if we're doing rainbow, or if it's like a Lisa Frank kind of thing where you've got a bajillion neon bright colors, I try to keep my palette very basic with maybe one bold pop of color that complements the others. But in this case, this Queen Mum bear is hanging tough in her beautiful ruins here. Those stations are nice too because they have straight lines that you can use to help you out. And since Mother's Day is past, I know I'm still using the Mama Bear. You could still, I know a lot of people, Father's Day is tough for various reasons. A lot of people celebrate their mothers for Father's Day as well. So this would be a great way to do that. And a lot of people are still struggling. I know things are lifting with pandemic, but a lot of people, you know, depression has become such a serious big bad boy. Not that it wasn't before, but the pandemic has definitely heightened some of that for people. So I think in a world where we can't hug, even though that's getting better, people need hugs more than anything, don't you think? And yes, Gwen, I hate mosquitoes. Hi, Chris. Thank you, Tina. So anyways, so she doesn't have mosquitoes there. I mean, she looks way too happy. She's not like smacking her arm or her leg, and she's not doing a weird scratch behind her ear. So yay, the fairies must have gotten rid of all the mosquitoes. I mean, you know, fairies are pretty good at doing multiple things. So anyways, that is our card. We actually completed an entire card. I'm just gonna show you from the side. I don't know if you can see that. We've got a little bit of dimension there with the different ways that we adhered the bits. Just to recap, for those that might just be joining in, I'm gonna show you what we used here. I did not use the mowed lawn at all. Okay, these are the Distress Oxide colors we used today. We used Shabby Shutters and Rustic Wilderness to build this gorgeous forest stenciled background. We used Hickory Smoke, Black Soot to build up the color on our castle, and then we dabbed on Vintage Photo and Rustic Wilderness to kind of give it that mossy, organic, found in the woods castle. Ooh, that mosquito's biting my neck. And then for the bear, I showed you those colors in the beginning. I will post those on my blog when I get everything photographed for you, along with all these same colors again if you missed it. And then we just kind of layered everything up on the background. Oh, and then for the card base, again, these same colors. Again, I did not introduce anything new. Hickory Smoke here for the base, that Rustic Wilderness with a hint of some of that Vintage Photo. I used Black Soot to kind of create more of a vignette around the edge. And then we spritzed and layered everything. So I hope you enjoyed this card. Again, the 3 products I'm using, the Bear Hugs, the Castle Die, and this Forest Stencil will be, I believe it's 20% off. For those of you that use my live code, the live code is my name, Marcia, M-A-R-C-I-A, June. For the month, no space in between. So again, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a lovely rest of your weekend. Happy Pride Month, yay! And I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for joining me, those that did. And yeah, enjoy your weekend. Bye, guys.